right. So with that being said, someone who is standing up for the status quo against the disruptors is your buddy Walter Hudson. You said you wanted to break down a video. I haven't watched this video yet, but this came out over the weekend. He's on Twitter. You said he mentions me by name on this thing, and he goes on a diatribe basically complaining about Action for Liberty. So this is the first time I've ever seen it. Jesse, I'll let you guide it, and I'll give you my thoughts on it, because Walter Hudson certainly seems to be an enemy to the liberty movement these days, even though he kind of grew up in that movement. So, but this isn't the first time a person gets elected, goes to the Capitol, and then turns to the dark side. In fact, that's so common, it's almost like there's a movie that came out in the 70s about going to the dark side. What was that movie? Oh yeah, that definitely exists. In fact, that franchise has gone on for 9 episodes now. Great. I love Star Wars. I don't know. Are you a Star Wars guy? Or are you?
I haven't seen a single Star Wars movie.
Oh my God, we do need to have a Friday movie day here. We'll start with episode. We'll do it right. We'll start with episode 4. All right, let's go ahead. Let's break this down.
Yeah, so Dawson, let's go ahead and pull up the post by Walter on Twitter. And, people will notice on here that this is his pinned post. This is the number one priority of Walter Hudson right now is to fight Action for Liberty. It's funny. He has no issue with the rhinos in power. His only issues are with the grassroots liberty conservatives. He needs to remember that he works for we the people, not the other way around. So let's go ahead and start, with that first timestamp at 2:40, where he is discussing Action for Liberty and the fact that we had the audacity to demand things out of Lisa Demuth as Speaker. So let's go ahead and play that there.
Legislative session. Leading up to the January 14th start date, A4L encouraged our members to withhold votes for Speaker Lisa Demuth in order to demand specific policy commitments that she was in no position to promise. The Speaker is powerful, to be sure, but she only has one vote. She can't compel other members to vote for a particular policy. So the idea that you could secure ultra-conservative outcomes like pre-COVID spending levels or any other specific changes to policy by holding the vote for Speaker hostage is categorically absurd. If you were to pull aside
stop right there.
Democrat,
That's a
He goes on to say, all you have to do is ask Melissa Hortman. He says Melissa Hortman knows better than anybody. It's like riding a bull. You have to work with people. You have to discuss things with people to earn their votes. It's like, a joke.
I wish that's the way that things worked up at the Capitol. If that's the way things worked up at the Capitol and we had rational people, then it'd be worth going up to the Capitol and talking to these
right bozos. Yeah, as if we've never seen Democrats force their members to vote for a specific issue. What a joke.
Yeah, what do you think? Geez, Walter, why do you think 6 con artist Democrats reneged on their vote against Walz's emergency powers and started supporting it? What do you think that was? This doesn't happen?
From convincing, just from conversation, what a joke. Let's go ahead and move forward to the 344.
By the way, it's not even Lisa Demuth. It's the idea is one person not voting for Lisa Demuth would not make her Speaker. So if she would have stood on those policies, isn't that what Action for Liberty was asking for anyhow?
Right. That and also do not seat Brad Tabke, which the rhinos all caved on. Including Walter. So which actually we'll be discussing that in a little bit.
But that was Tuesday. Walter was on board with this stuff.
Yeah, right. Wednesday Walter's not. Yeah. All right. So go ahead and play that.
By the way, for the people that don't know, he's actually a state representative. He's in his second term.
Yeah.
If you were to put it, not force.
Weird.
But unserious expectations are the bread and butter of a group like Action for Liberty. It's their stock and trade. And that's not by accident. As an activist, prior to being elected as a state representative, I personally attended Action for Liberty trainings on 3 occasions over the course of 15 years. Those trainings were based on materials provided by a national organization called the Foundation for Applied Conservative Leadership, or FACL. FACL trainings are attractive to disgruntled conservative activists because, like any cult, they present a sense of esoteric knowledge into the way things really work. They offer a secret path to power for people who feel powerless.
Okay, go ahead and pause there.
Oh, God.
So, obviously,
he's even worse than I thought these days.
He's unbelievable. To try to say that FACL trainings are that way, and he's saying it's a cult. And what's interesting is, people may not know this about Walter, but he comes from a cult in his own words. He says he was a Jehovah's Witness growing up, which he describes as a cult. He obviously still has that cult mentality, except where does his loyalty lie? It's to the Team Red Kool-Aid. It's to the establishment. It's to the Rhino leadership. So the fact that he wants to call it a cult.
But hold on one second. I think the bigger thing here is the fact that he undermines the frustration that conservative activists like you have and want to learn a way with the limited time and money you have to do something that actually will be successful in politics, right? This is why Trump is giving so many people hope, is because they're like, well, I voted for Trump, and now I feel like that vote for Trump is actually literally going against the status quo. He's undermining people that have that viewpoint. And by the way, why do you think Action for Liberty exists, and why does Action for Liberty do well? Because there's a lot of people that feel that way. That's the reason. Like, it's not like they're just turning new people into well, I guess I would say that there's new people that are learning the problems with the Republican establishment, but there was enough people that existed prior to Action for Liberty even existing that already knew how bad the Republican establishment was, and that they weren't getting any bang for their buck with the time and money that they gave. We got a rumble rant.
Well, and also he's being a massive hypocrite by saying that, it's a cult to be able to do that, but then what he's describing is not a cult at all. But
he's doing God's work up there.
Exactly. But we got $5 Rumble Rant from O'Bannon says, Wednesday Walter allegedly got doxxed by a tranny, and that asshat uses it as an opportunity to take a jab at Mort. What a piece of shit. And I know what you're talking about. It's somehow Action for Liberty's fault that a leftist went nuts on him. I'm not sure. Apparently we're the problem for everything that goes on.
I didn't know that we knew who had doxed him.
He puts it out there. He says who it was. Yeah. So, but let's go ahead and keep moving forward.
By the way, hold on one second, because I did see that post, and I foolishly responded to, like, literally, Walter lives on Twitter. Like, that's his whole thing. I wouldn't honestly be shocked if he gets paid to go against Action for Liberty. I have no idea, but the level of energy he puts into going after Action for Liberty these days is really bizarre to me. But who is he to talk about this stuff? Because he said, like, families are off limits. He literally made up a story or promoted a story on Twitter that was, like, slanderous towards people that I know, and ended up retracting it when he found out it was false. Like, literally, what do you think that was doing to families that would have witnessed that tweet? I don't want to speak of it, but, I mean, that's who Walter is. And that's where I kind of learned, like, holy shit, this guy's unhinged these days.
Right. And obviously, as if we're responsible for other people's actions that have nothing to do with us and don't even agree with us on anything. So, but, he goes on to kind of misrepresent faculty training further. We don't need to watch every second of it, but he's apparently getting mad at people for learning the fact that you want to target specific voters instead of targeting voters that are already on your side, or targeting voters who are already on the Democrat side. So apparently he's against conservatives learning basic political strategy. And then he also goes on to say that the tactics in FACL are what the Democrats do, because the Democrats will try to force exactly what they want, including trannies in school sports. Well, exactly. That's kind of our point, that the Democrats force exactly what they want through, and they get their legislators to do it, while the Republicans cave and they refuse to do what their base is asking them to do.
Another tactic I've seen the Democrats do on many occasions is make a point of order that a bill is not germane.
Yeah,
so,
right.
I've seen that tactic. I guess you guys are using the same tactics as the Democrats. I've also seen the tactic of the Democrats passing unconstitutional omnibus bills that you have just an hour to read. Oh, yeah, you guys use that tactic too. What do you got, Dustin?
So I just have a question about that whole bill thing that was going on. Is the reason that the Republicans wouldn't vote for the real Never Again bill just because they don't want A4L to have like a win under their belt?
Oh, I'm sure that weighs into it. Guys like Walter, who was literally the author of the Never Again bill the last 2 years, who also voted against public transparency. This is what I think that's the bigger one, really, is that they don't want the weak members having to take a vote on something that they don't really agree with, because this is a sad thing.
They want to protect the rhinos.
This show's called The Truth Hurts. We're going to tell you the truth, even if it's hurtful. It's not that all Democrats are the enemy of the Never Again bill and stopping endless emergency powers. Republicans are as well. There are people on the Republican side that think that COVID was handled correctly by guys like Governor Walz. Now, those people who exist in the legislature are very quiet these days, but they still are out there. You could find these people at the BPOU. They think the Never Again bill is too extreme because a governor really needs emergency powers because, you need to save us from ourselves. It's like, no, we have a constitution. The governor can't just declare himself king. So not every Republican's against it, but we'll never know if we can't get a test vote, and that's their game here. Is they want to stop that from even happening.
My other question that pops up in my head is what kind of leverage does the Rhino faction of the Republican Party
They have much more control than the Liberty faction, that's for sure. The Rhinos are pulling the strings of the State House caucus. I mean, Danny Nadeau has way more power than Drew Roach.
Well, so
that's a fact.
Well, so that's why I'm curious, because if Drew Roach, if any one Republican had gone and voted the other way, then that would be that win for the
Correct.
real Never Again bill. So that's like insane leverage that the Republican Party has to have against these grassroots guys. What would it be?
Yep, you are right. And as George Carlin said, it's one big party and you aren't in it, right? Or it's one big club and you're not in it. Because don't ever underestimate the gravitational pull of being in the club, all right? So that is something that we have to contend with. Now, we come from the position of being right, from the position of truth, from the position of conservative values. So we have more people on our side. The problem is they're the ones in charge of the institution. They're the ones that, literally this is what they do on the Democrat side. I bet you that happens on the Republican side. They're the ones that say, you won't get your next campaign funded. We'll find a primary challenger for you. Mm-hmm. The Liberty movement has got such an uphill battle. I always explain it this way. It's hard enough to find a good candidate, then it's hard enough to get them endorsed, and it's hard enough to win a primary, and it's hard enough to win a general election in some cases. And after all that's said and done, the establishment can still spoil them once they're in there because the gravitational pull of the caucus and being part of the club. It takes very few people that are willing to go against the grain. Eric Mortensen went against the grain. Donald Trump is going against the grain of the Washington establishment. Nice thing about Trump is, no one really denies that he, had a mandate from the people. If Trump only won one battle state, it would have been a different calculus right now in politics. But because he won 7 battleground states, it's like no one can deny on the Republican side that there was a mandate for Donald Trump's policies. And so they got to shut up and work behind the scenes against them, which they are clearly doing. All right, continue on.
Yep. And so I guess we will go ahead and move on to 825 in the video there, Dawson, because he goes on to say here that Action for Liberty doesn't actually care about passing conservative policies. So it's just a ridiculous lie. Let's go ahead and pull that back up. Go ahead and let's play there.
Elections. They don't care about passing conservative policies. They care about wielding power through division and chaos for its own sake.
That doesn't even make sense.
Here in Minnesota, we've seen this playbook firsthand. Action for Liberty, as one of the most vocal adherents to this FACL doctrine, spends more time attacking Republicans than fighting Democrats. This past week, that came into crystal clear focus when the interests of A. Farrell aligned with the actions of Minnesota House Democrat floor leader.
All right, stop real quick, because that's, oh my God. What a stupid thing to say. First of all, last I checked, and by the way, he knows this because he came up to our State Fair booth. We ran the Never Walls booth
for at least the last 2 years.
Tens of thousands of these fans given out to State Fair goers, got millions of impressions nationwide.
And anybody that reads our reporting, anybody that reads the news that we put out there, it's extremely clear where Action for Liberty is coming from. It's extremely clear that we see Democrats as the bigger enemy. But, obviously, Walter just wants to manipulate it. And it's funny that he says that Action for Liberty is the one that doesn't want to pass conservative policies. Really? Because I seem to think that it's the State House Republicans who don't want to pass conservative policies. Wasn't it the State House Republicans that caved to allow it to say that you need 68 votes to pass legislation? How are you going to be able to pass legislation if the Republicans don't even have the votes? We were the ones, Action for Liberty was the one that was telling people, no, it's actually 67. We were giving the Republicans a chance to be able to implement legislation. Walter and the Rhinos have prevented that from taking place.
It's so... he's like, this hypothetical, we don't want to pass conservative legislation, which I think most people just say is absurd.
Right.
And you guys literally aren't passing conservative
That's
legislation.
why we're pushing
Like, what are you talking about?
ultra-conservative legislation that he even describes as ultra-conservative. So let's go ahead and talk about some ultra-conservative legislation. Go ahead and go
hold on, because I want to also talk about, because I saw where he's going with this one, which is a ridiculous claim. Here's the other thing: is this guy's lying through his teeth. He's been to our training. He even alludes to he's been to our training 3 times. He knows the FACL model. Why do we go after Republicans? He knows this. He's literally received this training. When you're trying to move forward conservative policy, you do something called a 5-column analysis. And the people that are on side with you are double pluses, and the people that are never going to come your way is the double minuses. Then you have a +1, a fence setter 0, and a -1. The first people you go after to move forward on policy is the +1s, and that's generally Republicans. So this is the con that he's basically wanting everyone to fall prey to, is that the Democrats are the real enemy, so you should go attack the Democrats. And guess what that does? That helps them because it takes the pressure off of them and also helps them in election time. Where we go, hey, before we go attack the Democrats and spend money and resources where it's much harder to pull them this way,
who support trannies and girl sports, right?
Yeah, get the people that should be on board over here first from a practical standpoint before we start spending time and resources. If you want a great case in point, the first time we got a vote to end Walz emergency powers in 2020, this is April 14, 2020, a month after Governor Walz locked down the state of Minnesota. We had the first bill or first resolution to end Walz emergency powers. Maybe Walter knows this. He's once again, he's lying. Only 15 Republicans supported that. Only 15. 14 abstained, and the rest were all against ending Walz emergency powers. So using Walter's idea is strategy, we should just start attacking the Democrats right away. It's like, no, we still got to get all those other Republicans on board before I start wasting money on I shouldn't say wasting money, because essentially it's going to take money and resources to bring those Democrats over. And that's how we ended up on the Iron Range going against those con artists, which, by the way, at this point, Walter, none of them are still in the legislature. Gee, I wonder why that is. 3 of them, I think, just retired right off the bat. It's Mike Sundin and Paul Marquardt and, I guess Eklund literally lost, I believe. Yeah, Eklund literally lost the next election, and so did Sandsteed, or was that 2 elections? Well, I'm already forgetting.
Yeah,
all 6 of them are no longer there, and actually 7 if you include the fact that Carla Begum in the Senate didn't run again. So that's how the model works. You know that. You went through the training. You admitted you went through the training, and you're just being a liar right now. Now continue this video, because this is really precious what he's going to talk about here.
Now, ever since the pandemic, Minnesota conservatives have justly hungered for action to rein in the emergency powers of Governor Tim Walz. Seizing on that hunger, Action for Liberty, working with then Representative Eric Mortensen, who, since losing his seat to Democrat Brad Tapke, now serves as the president of Action for Liberty, authored what they call the Never Again Bill. Now, the spirit of the Never Again Bill is 100% dead on. The idea
it's 100%
is to prevent
dead on.
any future governor from doing what Walz did, from declaring a peacetime emergency and unilaterally declaring that we can't live our lives, that our kids can't go to school, that we can't operate our businesses, that we can't visit our dying loved ones, that we can't attend church. All while the liquor stores and big box stores and the governor's personal friends remain open for business.
Much better than Robbins.
The problem with the bill is in the particulars of its solution. It's too broad. It may, in fact, be unconstitutional.
Wait a second. Hold on.
Bill
he literally authored that bill last year.
He talks about that, too. He's just about to say some of that, too, that, I authored the bill knowing that we were going to have to go through this whole process and amend it and this and that and this and that, but I never got the opportunity because it was a Democrat-controlled legislature.
God.
So he's got all these excuses, and, it's one of those things that this legislation has worked through many different minds, and, it's gotten to a point where We're not concerned about the constitutionality of it. We're, what's actually unconstitutional is what Walz did. Walz is the one who was abusing his power and taking away our freedom. We are the ones who are trying to prevent unconstitutional actions from ever taking place again. And the only way that you can prevent unconstitutional actions from ever taking place again is to make sure that the governor has zero ability to be able to shut our state down. Not 14 days, 0 days.
Yeah, you can't just suspend our Constitution, which is what Governor Walz essentially did. But yeah, let's talk about constitutionality. Jeez.
Right.
Oh my God, he is getting worse. All right, what's the next one?
Yeah, and so let's go ahead and go to 1110, where he is discussing a little bit of the fake version of Robin's bill, and he is also discussing that Action for Liberty only wants pain for pain's sake.
Okay, that makes sense.
During his single term in the legislature. And since the standard of his organization, Action for Liberty, is not victory, but inflicting pain on Republicans for pain's sake,
we don't want victories.
Robin's bill isn't good enough.
Yeah, it's not.
See, the game that Action for Liberty is playing here is that they want to move the goalpost 10 yards out of bounds and then claim anyone who doesn't go along with that isn't a real conservative.
Okay, go ahead and pause it there. So it's unbelievable.
Never Again bill's out of bounds. Like,
right, we are pushing.
You authored the Never Again bill.
Right.
So you were out of bounds. Like, what is he even saying here?
Exactly.
What a moron.
Move the goalposts. Really, because the Republicans were the ones that moved the goalposts on tab key to where they were saying at first they weren't going to seat him. Then they decided, let's move the goalpost and we're going to seat him. And, our philosophy and political strategy has never changed. We're not the ones moving anything. All we're doing is pushing the GOP to the right. We're pushing them to be more conservative. And exactly. Of course, as described in the article, Robin's bill is not good enough. It increases governor power in certain regards, and like I said, it still allows us to be shut down and locked down for our state for 2 weeks. We don't believe that you should be locked down at all, and so that's why Action for Liberty was saying that the Robin's bill was not good enough. And to say that we just want pain for pain's sake, I mean, how ridiculous. Who wants that? Doesn't make any sense. What we want to do is push these legislators to be more conservative, and he knows that.
Yeah, there's this old accusation against Action for Liberty. They're just Democrat funded. It's interesting. The organization has been accused of being Koch funded, which we're not, and funded by the left or the Democrats, which we're not. It's like the most ridiculous thing. This isn't crazy. I think who was it? It's been accused of. I think Shapiro's been accused of being a Israeli sympathizer and a Nazi at the same time, right? So there's this craziness that goes on in the parlance of, American politics, but Walter falls trap on that. Honest to God, isn't it clear that we're like conservatives? I think Walter got involved in politics for the first time in the Tea Party era, 2010. I think when I first met him, he was new to politics. I was actually running the college Republicans in George W. Bush's first term. What are you talking about? I've probably been a Republican a lot longer than you. So, I don't even know what these guys are talking about. This is a ridiculous claim. All right, next.
Right,
next
and let's go ahead and keep playing because he goes on to say that Action for Liberty is just about money, and he'll talk about a legislative champion, what that really means. So let's go ahead and just keep playing from here, Dawson.
Of the manufactured outrage, regardless of legislative outcomes, and perpetuate their own existence as an organization and their own financial well-being as individuals. In order to do that, what they want and what the Foundation for Applied Conservative Leadership prescribes is what they call legislative champions.
Yeah.
An A4L legislative champion is someone who is willing to portray their caucus by using the parliamentary process to secure roll call votes.
That's accurate.
Which enable A4L to campaign against Republicans.
Yes, people that aren't on board moving forward legislation.
When Eric Mortensen, the current A4L chair or president, was a member of the legislature, he would attempt to bring amendments to bills on the House floor in order to get Republicans on the record voting against something A4L could then market against House Republicans.
By the way, stop real quick. And that the conservative base is on board with, right? That's what he's saying is, how dare conservatives actually know how legislators vote on the things they care about. Okay, so that's what he seems to be against here, but let him continue.
He wasn't actually trying to get something passed. He wasn't legislating.
Of course he was, if it could.
He was just abusing the legislative process to build his own personal brand and to help his friend, A4L founder Jake Duesenberg, make more money from duped conservative activists.
Okay, go ahead and pause right there.
So they're idiots. So the only thing is we're maybe we've done the duping. I don't know what he's alleging here, or they're just too stupid, and we just do this to personally benefit ourselves. It's a ridiculous claim,
Right?
But because this is the other thing that Walter's a liar on. He knows me. Walter and I have known each other for over a decade. You know I believe this stuff. I used to be on your radio show all the time. Do you think I don't believe this stuff? Is that what you're saying? What a ridiculous claim.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. What he's saying is Mortensen made amendments. Rhinos refused to vote for it, and then A. Farrell informed the grassroots. What a crime! What a crime. The fact that we keep people educated and that we tell them, hey, there's rhinos who don't want to vote for conservative bills. There's rhinos that won't vote for conservative amendments. You'd think that the conservative grassroots would want to know which ones are doing the right thing and which ones aren't. And also, it comes to no surprise that Walter's always talking about financial benefit. He's always talking about money. Walter has money on his mind ever since he lost his salary DEI position with the MNGOP. And if money was our top priority, I'll tell you, liberty conservative politics is the wrong avenue to go down. If you wanted to actually be, if this was all about money, we would side with the establishment. There's way more money with the establishment. If we wanted to just make money, and had no principles, of course, we would be like Walter. We would join the establishment because there's more connections, more money, a lot more everything on that side. So it's just interesting that he wants to try and claim that this is about money when really we stick our necks out on the line for this kind of stuff. We definitely make a lot of enemies within the political circles and with these powerful people, state legislators and whatnot. So to try to think that it's about money when it's anything but that, it's all about principle.
Well, it's so utterly ridiculous with Walter. And first of all, he's lying because he knows better than this stuff. Okay, so I just have to put that out there. But the idea that we don't really believe in this stuff, well, Walter, I wouldn't even accuse you of that. I just accuse you of being a sellout, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I do believe in your heart you believe in conservative things. You're just failing to do anything about it. You've probably sold out on the actual thing that's needed to accomplish those things long term. But the idea that you say, and I know you know better, but say we don't even believe in this stuff is so utterly ridiculous.
Right.
You've known me for 10 years. I used to go on your radio show. I have a show. We broadcast 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. That is a lot of me pulling off an acting job.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess he thinks I'm an Oscar-level actor, that I've literally been running this acting job to this degree where people literally think I'm conservative. Maybe, just maybe, I actually am very conservative and think this way. And by the way, probably have thought this way much longer than you, Walter.
Right.
I'm pretty sure he got into politics only a decade ago. I go way further back than that.
And, he says that forcing votes are abuse of the legislative process. It's so unbelievable. So apparently, if you step out of line with the corrupt establishment party bosses, you're abusing the process. Really, we would say that you are fighting the process and you're allowing for the voices of citizens to be truly represented rather than just going along with what the party bosses tell you to do and tell you to think and tell you to vote. He also goes on to basically say that Eric Mortensen lost disgracefully to Brad Tabke, which is interesting because who is responsible for Brad Tabke being in the legislature this cycle? Oh, yeah, that's right. Walter Hudson and the Republicans, because Walter was voting with the Democrats to allow Brad Tabke to be seated. Walter and all the other rhinos, except for Drew Roach and Tom DePel, voted to make sure that Brad Tabke would be seated. So, for him to try to say that it's Mortensen's fault that Brad Tabke is in there is quite ironic. And also, I think Walter knows better than to say that anyway, because let's just be honest with what the situation was with Eric Mortensen. The HRCC and the Republican Party was refusing to help him, so that he had no assistance from the Republicans. The Republicans were telling all of the people during the primary, do not vote for Eric Mortensen. They were supporting Booz and Bob Loonan instead, so they were dividing the Republican base in Shakopee from instead of consolidating and supporting their incumbent representative, Eric Mortensen. And then also, it completely leaves out the fact that, it's true that Eric Mortensen was more conservative than his area. And so because of that, he maybe lost some moderate voters. When you're in a swing district and you stick your neck out there and you fight like a conservative, you're going to lose some supporters. That's just bound to happen. Because we can't expect that every single person in Minnesota is going to be a liberty warrior that wants to see that happen. So he maybe lost some voters, but
I don't believe...
if you were in a red district, of course that wouldn't be any issue. But the fact that he was able to do that in a swing district, you're lucky that Republican was able to win that in the first place. And thank God it was won who was
Actually
fighting
did
for
something,
liberty, that was
right.
doing something.
And Walter comes from a strong red district, but,
Right.
But that's even. I don't even know if I totally agree with what you just said. You have to understand that his district got redistricted. They lost 2 conservative precincts and got 2 Democrat.
Yep, there's that
precincts. It's
too.
like, so the district got worse, but it is what it is. I mean, listen, there's no shame in running again and trying to run. I guess Walter's position is it's shameful, or what was the words he used? Shameful or whatever his words
I
was.
don't know.
Disgraceful.
Yeah.
Like, so when you lose an
Disgracefully,
election, it's
right.
disgraceful, I guess. to
Yeah.
Walter Hudson. Okay.
Right.
I'm sure you got a lot of buddies, Walter, that also lost elections. You know, it's good that people try to run. So, God, what an asset. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you've always done. I've thought it was funny, you know, when you went after Walter, because like I was like, I have no issue with Walter. You know, he is like completely changed in just the last 3 months, and best I could tell is he lost his fucking job with the party, and he's butthurt, and so he's made it. I mean, it also does seem like there's some interest behind what he's doing. Like, why would you spend 20 minutes? You know,
And making
if you don't even have a
it's his
job,
top priority. You know,
yeah,
this is his
if you don't
pinned
have a
post
job,
on X.
why? Because it's not your job as a legislator. So why would this be your job to do a video 20 minutes? And clearly, he was reading a script at the beginning.
Yeah.
On Action for Liberty.
he's
And by the
reading
way,
something,
Clearly,
yeah.
Action for Liberty is powerful. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing this all the time.
Right, exactly.
weird thing.
He tries to juggle the 2 ideas that we're useless and that we can't get anything done, that we're ineffective. But at the same time, we seem to have all this power to be able to break the break the majority. So he obviously is. And, you know, like you said, he's a changed person. This isn't who he always was. And he even
No.
talks about this.
Sad.
Let's go to 1330, where
really-
he admits that he chose to side with the establishment and that it was more convenient to be with them rather than being a fighter like we had thought he might be.
Becky Hack says maybe he is 1972-10. No, he's not Michael Broadcourt.
Yeah.
I know. Twitter's
The
videos suck.
conclusion that their methodology only works to pad their pockets.
Oh, God.
It doesn't get bills passed. It doesn't deliver for Minnesotans. So this year, with a new crop of freshman House Republicans newly elected, A4L is looking for their new champion, someone who is willing to betray the rest of us in exchange for being lauded by an ineffective minority of activists for being the only real conservative.
Boy, he really spends a lot of time
But
against
they
an
haven't had much
ineffective
luck on
org.
that front. We certainly have ideological disagreements within the House Republican caucus. Any group of people does.
And why
But
do
to
the left?
date,
Why is the
we have
leftist
not
ones
had a
always win?
single member who has been willing to sabotage our team to make themselves look better than the rest of us, which is exactly what A4L demands.
Yeah, stand up for their
So in the
constituents.
absence of a Judas in the House Republican
Oh,
caucus,
Judas! Oh my God, this
who
guy's
has
so.
A4L turned to?
What?
You'll love this.
Hold on. No, stop, real quick.
Their new
Just stop. You're a Judas if you turn against the other 66 politicians
Against
in
the
the caucus.
rhinos.
That's what he's saying. Instead of standing up for your people. You know who the real Judas is? Is the person that cares more about the 66 other members of the caucus than your damn constituents who are demanding something. What a phony. All right.
Right.
Boy, I don't know if I've got temperament to finish this out.
Yeah, he basically just goes on to say Jamie Long is our legislative champion.
Is that what he says here? Go ahead, play it.
legislative champion. Their new hero is House Democrat floor leader Jamie Long.
Okay, well, what?
I recognize
I don't
the
even.
author
and
of the
you
amendment.
can
I
pause
don't even
that
know
to-
what to say on that. That's the most ridiculous. What a
Right,
freaking
as if
moron.
we requested it, and maybe I shouldn't say this,
Oh.
but here's the thing.
By the way, no, he's
we
not a moron.
didn't-
He knows what he's saying. He's lying. He's lying to you on that one.
Right, of course.
Oh,
Nobody
jeez.
from Action for Liberty talked to the Democrats and asked them to make that motion. In fact, I
Oh, did he
actually
say
tried
that in
to-
there?
Well, no, he doesn't say that, but that's what he's implying, that we're somehow working with the Democrats. I mean, give me a break. It's just a moment where the Democrats also saw the opportunity to divide, but that doesn't mean that the vote was wrong. So, yeah, it's ridiculous. But we can keep moving here. Let's go ahead and go to 16.
What else is there? I don't really.
Yeah,
care
there's
anymore at
just
this
I know
point.
there's just a couple other things.
Like-
just so,
like literally when
just
you
so
say
it's on
some-
record, we gotta
Okay.
clarify a couple
All right,
of
fair
these
enough.
things.
But honestly, when you say something like that, it's like you're so utter.
He has no credibility.
You should have no credibility after. You think we care about Jamie Long? Like, you just watch our video, which I'm sure came up before your video. Like, literally, I say this is what the Democrats are doing here. They're not being serious.
Right.
What a joke.
So let's go and
which
go
video?
to 1620, Dawson.
Which video you're referring to came out before this one?
What's that?
He's saying the one that he made about how
Yeah, the one we did on Friday, the
legislative
one-
one.
Well, I guess it came out
this
Saturday
came,
morning.
This came
didn't
out
it?
on the 28th. So a day before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it matters, but
All right, yep, go ahead and play there.
Author of the Mortensen bill from the rest of us. Doing so would effectively break the House Republican majority. We're 67 members against 66 Democrats. So if Long can successfully drive one of us to fight against the rest, the Democrat trifecta will effectively be restored.
Okay, go ahead and pause it. It's the most ridiculous argument in the world. He's saying that if a Republican, if Drew, for example, would have voted to allow the amendment, it would break the GOP majority. I mean, tell me how that works. By pushing a conservative amendment, that somehow breaks the GOP majority? That somehow implements a Democratic trifecta? That somehow restores it? I mean, it's unbelievable. And, a point I was going to make, too, on the amendment that was proposed by Jamie Long, the fact that, of course, Action for Liberty didn't tell Jamie Long to introduce that. I requested that Republicans be the ones who introduced that amendment, along with several other ones. I won't say who I told that to, but it was someone within the House, and they completely dropped the ball. They did not insert a single amendment to try to improve the bill. So really, I was hoping that the Republicans could offer these things in good faith, but of course the Democrats took the advantage instead.
Jesse, technically, Pam Altendorf did amend the bill and added the Never Again's Bill of Rights into it. So it did make it better in that regard.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. No, and that's the thing. All three amendments were improvements. Even Robin's amendment was an improvement. So there is no dispute on that. So all three of those amendments that were intended on that bill improved the bill. And, so it's just ironic that, we're somehow both things, like I had said earlier, that we're ineffective, but also at the same time, we have the ability to break the GOP majority. So he's making no sense. Let's go and go to 18 minutes in. This is where Walter is saying that we need to cut the cancer out of the MNGOP, obviously talking about us. So let's go and play that.
Tear it apart from the inside. If you want to see Minnesota flip red, if you want conservative policies enacted, then it's time to reject these destructive tactics. It's time to cut out the cancer of Action for Liberty from the Republican Party of Minnesota.
Okay, and go ahead and skip forward to 1830 because let's go ahead and
no, what does he say? This recent alignment? What is he saying there?
Jamie Long should be the death knell.
Yeah, it should be the end of us. Is basically what he says.
Be the death knell.
That's the dumbest.
It's
so dumb. God, you're so dumb.
No self-respecting Republican.
But he's going to say how he was a supporter.
I'm mad now. I'm very mad.
And I say this as someone who has been associated with them in the past.
That's right. Yeah, you turn.
Yeah, this isn't about judging activists for falling for what A4L has sold.
Oh, because they're too dumb, Walter.
I get it. It's attractive to think you have the inside track on the real nature of politics and can somehow coerce. No,
you lecture us on the real nature of politics. How are you passing legislation right now, huh? Come on, you tell us. Tell us exactly how much of a champion you are. And by the way, how many elections have you guys won recently? Right? Mm-hmm. Seems to me you've lost 3 or 4 elections in a row. You failed to win the Minnesota House. Tell us, lecture us more on your great strategy, Walter.
Right.
Jeez.
It's ridiculous. And, a point I want to make is that, let's imagine a scenario where a Democrat representative opposed the child mutilation bill. Would Walter Hudson praise them as a hero, or would he say they betrayed their caucus? Of course, he would praise them as a hero for doing the right thing. So why can't Republicans do the same exact thing by, not drinking the red Kool-Aid and choosing to vote the right way and do the right thing by going against their party, by going against their caucus? Shouldn't Republicans be afforded the same opportunity to do the right thing as Democrat legislators should be? And, it's funny, Walter says that he doesn't want GOP representatives to be fighting amongst themselves because that only helps the Democrats. Yet he was the one attacking one of his fellow representatives on Twitter. This is a post that he's since deleted, but luckily it's been screenshot and saved because he was going after Drew Roach for calling out Steve Simon on the floor. So let's remember what Walter Hudson said. He said, whether measures are extraordinary is less important than whether they're effective. For instance, today one of our members picked up the mic and yelled at Simon. You didn't know that because the cameras were off and it changed nothing. Barking isn't fighting. So he's the one who's saying that it's so important that the caucus stays unified, but he can't even be the one to do that himself. He's a massive hypocrite, the fact that he wants to think that he can be the one to throw stones, especially when someone is standing up and saying, hey, Steve Simon, you're a tyrant. Apparently that's an issue for Walter Hudson.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point. So by attacking another Republican who is going against the caucus, you're going against the caucus too, because the caucus isn't unified. And it's kind of like circular.
And, also, let's think about what kind of things actually help the Democrats. For example, a bill that would make AI memes illegal, AI political memes illegal. So eliminating your free speech. And, of course, who is that going to be enforced by? Antifa Keith Ellison. And who was the one who was proposing that bill? Who was the one who was championing the bill to illegalize memes and to be able to throw you in prison and be able to fine you up to $10,000? Who was the one championing that bill? Oh, it was Walter Hudson. But who's the ones who are helping the Democrats? Somehow Action for Liberty, when we're the only ones who exposed that bill. So let's go ahead and keep moving here. We'll go on to...
I can't get over the fact that his premise on this whole thing, though, is that you guys are the idiots.
Right.
You're just being duped by
and also, for all the supporters of us, try to keep it straight. You were allowed to support us before when Walter supported us, but now that he's in the legislature, you're not allowed to support him anymore. No decent person would support us, even though he was one of the decent people supporting us before. Right. So let's go and go on to 1910, because you will get to hear what he describes himself and the other Republican members of the caucus as. It's so good. I don't want to spoil it. Go ahead and play it.
And that's what Minnesota Republicans have to commit ourselves to. Hard work to elect legislative majorities and secure statewide wins as a team of happy warriors who deal with the texture of the battlefield.
That's good.
Hold on.
Happy warriors.
Hold on. Keep going.
Happy warriors. If this video says anything.
Keep going.
As we would prefer it to be. And that's not compromise.
Okay, but listen how he doesn't say pass conservative legislation. Did you notice that? He doesn't say that that's their objective, and that's true. Their objective is not to pass conservative legislation. It's to elect a Republican majority.
Right.
Do you see the problem that we have, Walter? Is our objective is not just a Republican majority. It's probably better, maybe it's better to have a Republican majority. It's to pass conservative legislation. That's not your objective. Your objective is to get to the next election.
Right.
Your objective is to get reelected. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to be invited back to the party, and you love being in part of that party nowadays, don't you?
Right, and the fact that he labels himself and these others as happy warriors, if I got anything from this video here, it's that Walter is so happy. It's that Walter is just a joyful person who is ready to spread his love and positivity. And let's just go ahead and end on this video with 1938 there, Dawson, where he says that demands are tyrannical, and he talks about Trump being the leader, and I've got a few things to say on that, so... let's go ahead and play that first, and then we will react on the flip.
Are the currency of tyrants. Service is the currency of citizens. So let's serve each other and work toward electoral victories which will align our state of Minnesota with the national reformation currently being led by President Donald Trump.
Okay, that's good. So, there's just a couple interesting things there. He says that demands are the currency of tyrants. Does he mean demands like cut the cancer of the MNGOP? Does he mean demands like ban anyone affiliated with Action for Liberty from the MNGOP? Are those the kind of demands that he's talking about? Because it certainly seems like those are tyrannical demands from Walter Hudson. So if that's what he's discussing, then I'm in 100% agreement. And I'm glad to hear that he's such a big supporter of President Donald Trump. I wish he was a supporter as long as I've been, because he's talking about how Trump was the leader. Really? Where was Walter Hudson during the Republican primary for president? Oh, that's right. He was staying silent, and he was actually supporting Guantanamo Bay, Ron DeSantis, rather than supporting President Trump. So he wants to unify behind this MAGA agenda that he wasn't really with. He's not a MAGA Republican. He was against Trump, and he was keeping it silent. That's what a lot of these politicians do. They pretend like they are with us 100%. Oh, I'm a liberty fighter. Oh, I love Trump. Really? Where were you when Trump was running? Because, these people were nowhere to be found. And so, the fact that he's using Trump, as we brought up before, what is Trump doing? He is showing what happens, and he's showing that conservatives, the base, is extremely happy when you fight the establishment.
Yes.
Instead of fighting the establishment, Walter is begging people to side with the establishment, side with the Rhino leadership. Do not support groups that are going to demand more out of their leaders. So if you really want to be in line with the MAGA, America First agenda, it's much more closely aligned with Action for Liberty than anything you will get out of Rhino Walter Hudson at this point.
Becky Hack has got it right on the money. Says Walter is a servant, the constituents are his boss. He seems to forget that.
Yes.
That's what this is all about. It's just like he's literally admitted in this video that he serves the caucus, which is 66 other politicians. That is the high. You heard him. You heard it from his mouth. That is his higher calling. How dare he go against the caucus, Walter? If your constituents demanded you win against your caucus, would you do it? And I think, well, first of all, I don't think he wants to answer that question, but I think we know the answer to that question. He's already said his higher calling is serving the caucus. So is the caucus perfect? Do they get it right? Is that it? They're noble 67.
Yep, and you're not allowed to criticize. You're not allowed to criticize the caucus, which sounds an awful lot like a cult. That sounds like a cult.
That's right. It is a cult.
Cultist Walter Hudson. He wants to accuse others of what he is guilty of. So he's obviously a cultist. He's drinking that red Kool-Aid, and it's a little bit sad to see. I wish that he would have been a liberty fighter, but instead, like most politicians, he's chosen to side with the establishment. It doesn't surprise us because, like I said, we know what these politicians are, and that's what more conservatives have become savvy to. These lies aren't working anymore.
Yeah. Well, listen, it's not the first that I've seen get spoiled going up the Capitol, so it's not like I'm surprised by any of these things. I much prefer Walter to be good. I would prefer that he continues to be a liberty warrior because he's, I guess maybe I didn't notice his smugness until it was directed at us, but yeah, he is very smug. And so maybe he did come across that way before, and I just was blind to it. But it is what it is. We'll continue doing